Okay, so we've been painting these really polished portraits for a few weeks, I think, but I decided to switch it up a bit, you know, gotta make it entertaining. But I also had way too many ideas in my head, but all of them didn't make sense. Plus, I kind of wanted to experiment, so this is a little bit of a sketchbook dump where we're just putting everything in the spread, everything that's in my mind, and see how that goes. So, yeah, let's go. Okay, so first things first, where did the owl go? You just saw me sketch a pretty owl with this clock thing, and I was drawing a character that I've drawn before. I don't remember. I think it's even in the sketchbook. But I was trying to go for a different design, and then I realized I wasn't really liking it. I like the concept, and I definitely wanna dive deeper into this shattered clock owl vibe. But I really couldn't decide on the colors. I thought, you know what, since it is like an experimental sketchbook spread, I will take a picture, so I remember the whole owl idea, and let's just start over. And this is what happened. And yes, a last video I did draw or paint deers, but I felt like I wasn't done, and I wanted to paint this really colorful one because the other ones were food related and this one isn't, so I didn't want to include it in that video. But yeah, so I was still feeling like I wanted to paint a deer. I know I said no more portraits for a little bit, but hey, here's another one. But yeah, my whole idea behind this was that I just wanted to put as many colors as I could, see if it reads well. So for the colors not to go fully crazy and just intertwine with each other too much, I needed to figure out where I'm putting what colors. So for the shadow parts, I tried to do more blue-purple tones, and for the light part, I did the orangey yellow part. I also had to figure out where the darkest area would be because I thought it would be cool to make the antlers go from this dark tone to a lighter tone. Originally I thought to reverse it, but I thought, well, a lot of thinking going on here. But I thought that it would not read as well as I would think, because I started to put in colors and I realized that the antlers start to disappear a bit with the colors that the deer has. So I tried to switch it, and the antler starting point is very dark, and I think it looks nice because it contrasts very well with the yellow that is going on next to the antler. Also, I decided to do this funky thing with the eye where the iris isn't the dark part but the lightest part of the eye. I thought it could be cool to experiment with that as well because I wanted the eye to really pop out, even though we have so many crazy colors here. I've been wanting to paint an orca for a while now, and today was the day. But I also thought it would be fun to experiment and mix it with a monstera, but specifically monstera that's variegated. I think that's how you say it. I feel like I've already had this question if that's how you say it. Anyways, because orcas have white and dark spots, so I thought perfect, we can mix that with all the greens, all the whites from the plant and see how it looks. And again, this is an experimental piece and I feel like I could have done it a bit better, but you know what, I think it's okay for our first try. I did a lot of layering for this piece and I had to look at my plant, what kind of colors it had, and I noticed it also had this light yellowish green going on and then of course these dark greens. So it has a lot of types of greens in the plant, so I really tried my best to make it seem like it's layered but also keep that orca pattern so that this orchid doesn't look too weird, because if you take away the main elements it becomes something totally different, so I had to keep that in mind. And here you might see that the brush strokes are very visible, at least in some of the layers, and I decided to keep that because I thought I can't really make the layers appear how I wanted them to be, so this kind of texture was mimicking it a little bit, and I thought it just added a little fun flair because I didn't want to spend hours figuring out how to make this layered effect, because this is just a sketch dump where we're just painting ideas, if we like it we will come back and make it better. For all of these drawings, I decided to finish them up with acrylic markers because it's fun to just experiment, and since this is the whole idea for today's video, then it's also fun to just mix mediums like markers, and since we are already painting with acrylic paint, then why not introduce some acrylic markers as well? And I did try to go in with some acrylic gels, but I think since the acrylic paints are so glossy and shiny, the acrylic gels take a very long time to dry on it, so I didn't want to accidentally smudge something, so I took it away. Mostly it was for the snakes, but yeah. When I was thinking of what to draw, I asked my boyfriend and he said raccoons, and I don't remember if he suggested the rock raccoon or I thought about rocks, but either way, I was very on board of painting rocks because I love mixing textures like these, and seeing if it works, if it clicks, or if it looks like a big mess. So this was a very trust the process kind of deal for me, because rocks are always a bit tricky because I'm taking organic forms that are very flowy, Raccoons are very round, very fluffy, and then you have to make it look like a rock, So those two things are quite hard to do well, but I think in the end it all tied together. So I put the sandy color for the whole base so we have something to work off of. Otherwise, if I start painting each rock part, it will get confusing and I want it to be very cohesive. So then after I go with this almost blue toned color to mark where the edges start, where the rock shifts, because I want to leave the top parts with this sandy color, and then I'm trying to carve out the shadows a bit more where the harder edges are or where we would have the darkest parts. And this is a very, you have to see what works and what doesn't, because right now it's so experimental that even I get confused about what really is happening here. And I've drawn a few rock pieces and I really loved this tiger one. It doesn't look like a tiger, or maybe that one was based off of a lion. I don't remember anymore, but I really liked it. That one was fully digital. But yeah, it's a bit of a guessing game, and that's fine, you know. The more we do it, the more we learn and see what works. It's just here, I think sometimes I was losing my initial sketch and then I got confused. But after, we're adding this moss part, and this whole idea was that the moss would be the stripy part, the raccoon's mask part, and I think it looks really cool. I wish I made the tail part a bit more noticeable, that those are the rings of the tail, but I just couldn't resist adding more moss because it looked so cute. And of course, we had to add a little tiny mushroom because, you know, I thought it would look so adorable if he just had a little mushroom friend on his head. For the highlights, I could have gone with a different color instead of white, but I don't know why I didn't. But you know, it was easy and I thought, you know what, let's just go with it. Hopefully it will look nice. Worst case, I'll have to go over it. And you know, I kept it. I could have gone with a little bit of a darker color, but you know, this really makes it feel a bit more shiny, and then with the pencil it kinda adds everything together, so I think it's okay, right? Another thing I've been trying to find time for is to draw kiwis, and specifically why I haven't done it is because they have this fuzzy outside part which is brown, and sometimes I'm scared to do stuff with brown paints because they can become quite muddy, not just because they're brown, but if you don't have the right tone of a brown color, then it can look weird. So I've been scared to try this kiwi concept out, but I thought, you know what, this is the perfect time, and we're drawing snakes, but both of them aren't gonna be kiwi snakes because I thought, you know what, I'll just do one, but then I realized that I could add another one to fill in the space a bit more. And then I had to figure out, okay, what's the other snake? And since we are doing fruit, I thought a peach snake could look cute and it would contrast very well with this green kiwi snake. For the peach snake, I'm also approaching it with the same idea as the kiwi one, where the belly part is the inside of the fruit and the top part is the outside, I guess. To make this fuzzy effect, I really tried to add a lot of layers of different kinds of browns because the kiwi is reflecting light very funky. So I was trying to make it look fuzzy also with dabbing the brush and making tiny little round brush strokes. To my surprise, the brown part wasn't the hardest part to do, but the belly was the hardest to figure out. That's why it's the last thing I did, because I realized where the heck am I gonna put this inside of the kiwi, you know? It has like this almost white core and all of the seeds as well. So I thought, oh no, I don't know, I didn't have any ideas of how to do it because I just had this green brown separation idea in my head, and I completely got lost in all the details because sometimes when I'm focusing on something I completely just I don't see the tiny things. So it was a bit harder to figure that out, and so I just did like these white parts in each of the section of the snake and added the seed part later. I also decided that I needed kind of like a border for this separating the green and the brown. At first I thought I would do it in a dark brown color, but then I decided to do it in a dark green color. So we're almost at the end here. If you made it this far, comment a peach emoji or write that's very peachy, because you know at the start nobody hopefully knows that we're painting a peach snake, and this I needed to lighten up the inside part and make it a bit more yellow because the inside of the peach, it is very orangey I guess, but it has a lot of yellows. Damn, today the trucks are really trying to ruin every voiceover. I'm kind of happy that this was the last thing I painted because I was getting very tired and this was very simple. You just had to layer colors on top of each other. There was basically no thinking, like for example the raccoon one. I had to think a bit more how things would work, and here I only had to think a little bit with the shadows to make sense of how the snake is folding. Or twisting. But that was it. And then I also kept the eye the last part because again I couldn't decide if we should go with the light eye or with the dark eye, but in the end I decided to make it a dark eye, mostly because the peach has a core, of course, and it's quite dark, and also the kiwi snake eye was light, so I thought, you know what, let's keep one eye light and keep the other one dark. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed this a bit chaotic sketchbook dump, and let me know which concept we should dive deeper into. Maybe we should draw more rock raccoons. I don't know, so let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Hold me tightly like I was there and whisper softly in your ear that everything is gonna be alright.